Welcome to week 3, folks. We're just going to wait. I think pretty much everyone is going to be watching the recording this week except Jason. So I'm just going to get Jason on. Jason,
Hey, how's it going?
what's up, man?
Not much. How about yourself?
Oh, nothing. Just finished up quite a long day of calls here. So I'm excited that you and I are getting to do this and talking about this. This is actually probably my favorite week because week 1 and 2 is a little bit of build up, a little bit of the framework overall in terms of what selling is and how to prepare yourself and how decision making happens. But this week, I'm actually going to lay out a structure that I use on calls, and yeah, so we'll go over the structure. So this is really exciting. So we'll go over the structure here, and then in the last 2 weeks, what we'll just talk about is filling in the gaps, getting more detailed, talk about objections. But this is the week, man. This is a big week.
I'm excited.
I am too, dude. You ready to do this?
Yes, sir.
All right, sweet. I'm going to share my screen. And then let's just do what we usually do, where I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to get this out of the way, and then you just let me know, confirm that you can see this. I'm not going to use a Google presentation this week. I'm just going to go through a doc.
Okay.
So just confirm for me that you can see this.
I can see it.
All right, cool. So even though it's just you and I, Jason, we've got people listening to the recording. So what I'd love it if you could do is just mute yourself as I'm going through this. And then as usual, just because I'm not looking at the camera portion of this, if you've got questions or if you need to stop me for any reason, just take yourself off mute and say, hey, hold on a sec.
All right, cool. I can do that.
Cool. All right. So welcome everybody to the recording of week 3 of Selling on Purpose. This is personally my favorite week because in week 1, we got to understand a little bit about what is the overall framework of sales, meaning how do we prepare ourselves mentally for sales? What are our prospects going through as they're considering making decisions, and really what's limiting them in that process? Week 2, we talked about agendas, and then it went in a little bit deeper into the psychology of sales. But then what we did is that exercise where I had you start to write out some of that stuff, right? Some of those impact questions about the unique selling proposition of your product or service based on the features and benefits that are in your product or service. And then for Mike, I created that special exercise for you since you're doing some idea extraction. Now is where we're taking some of these building blocks that we've put together, and I want to share with you guys a call structure that I've developed over time. This call structure is based on all of the selling methodologies that I've been through, as well as my personal experience, literally on thousands of sales calls and millions of dollars. So this is something that works. And I've been through everything. So you're going to see as we go through it that some of the building blocks that we've done, like the questions that we've put together, like the agenda that we practiced, they're all pieces that I'm going to insert into this overall conversation. So what is the core of a sales conversation? Well, the core of a sales conversation is ultimately a few things, okay? The first core, and I'm not actually going through the doc yet, so I'm just giving you some framework, everybody, so don't worry. The core of a sales conversation is that you need to understand, number one, what does someone actually want? Okay, so they've gotten on a call with you for one reason or another because you've sent them a crafty email or because you were targeting them on Facebook ads. However they've ended up with you, now they're going to be on a call with you, or they're going to be sitting across from you in person at a table. And what you need to understand from them is a few core things. What you need to understand from them is, first, what is their vision? So you actually need to understand where do they want to be versus where they're at now? And a key indicator that they're not where they want to be is the simple fact that they're on a call with you right now, right? So you know by them agreeing to a call with you that there's something going on in their business or their life that is not pleasing to them, that is not optimal for them. So the first thing that you need to understand from that person is, what do they actually want to be experiencing? What aspects of their business do they want to grow in, right? So we want to understand first, sure, there's things going on right now in your business that aren't going really well. But what we want to understand is, what do they actually want to experience? Because here's the thing. When you speak with most business owners or most people, they don't actually know what they want. They can pretty clearly tell you what they don't want. And they can pretty clearly tell you, and they will tell you and expand on this. They will expand on the problems. They will expand on the reasons why they haven't gotten what they've gotten. So all of that stuff is easy. But the trick here is that we want to help them see, if they can't already see, what they actually want to be getting out of a business, right? So step one of this whole thing is their vision, right? Everything in sales is led by vision. Before you can help somebody get to where they're looking to go, you have to help them clearly see and understand where is it they're actually looking to go. The second core part of this is their commitment to making a change or to doing something differently in order to achieve that vision that they've now described to you. That's important because you need to understand from their perspective, why is now the time that you want to make a change to your marketing, to the way that you're generating leads, whatever your product or service is helping them with. What you need to understand is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where does their commitment lie in their desire to make a change in order to get them to this vision that they've been telling you about, right? So again, step one is their vision. You have to help them understand and articulate, what is it that they actually want? Do they want to grow their marketing by 30%, by 40%? What are their goals? So we're going to help them understand, what do they actually want? And then we're going to help them kind of experience their goals. Step two is going to be the commitment. So this is not you getting them to tell you that they're really committed because they think that's what you want to hear. This is you qualifying them. You are going to be asking them to ask themselves, why is this important for you to improve or change right now? And again, it's not a leading question. You're not trying to get them to say, Frank, I'm so committed because that's what I think you want to hear. You're getting them to really dig deep down and understand, why is now the right time to change this particular thing that we're talking about? And is it the right time? So we've got vision, we've got commitment, and then the third piece to this whole thing is the roadblocks. Right? So this is where we're actually going to start inserting some of those questions that we spent some valuable time putting together last week. So we've created this list of questions based on the features, benefits, and then the root benefits of that, so that we're asking them impactful questions. Because remember, the goal is that you're not telling them things, because people can't be convinced by anything. Telling isn't selling. When you tell someone something, you're immediately putting up a barrier between you and them, where they want to poke holes in what you've said. So our goal with this asking questions portion of it, or finding out what their roadblocks or obstacles or challenges are, isn't so that we can tell them things. It's to get them to see for themselves why whatever it is that they're doing or wanting to do or talking about, why all of that stuff is not happening, right? And we want to get to the root of that. And the way that we get to the root of that isn't by telling them things, but it's by asking the questions that are impactful enough to expose things that they might not have even realized about their business. So that is really the core of this call structure that we're going to be talking about today. The core of the structure, again, is their vision. What is it that they actually want? Then the second part of this is their commitment. Right? Is now the right time for them to make a change? And you're not leading them to that, right? You're getting them to truly evaluate, is now a right time? And if so, why? And then the third part of this whole thing is their obstacles. That's where we're going to be asking them the impactful questions that are going to expose whether or not there's an opportunity for us to help them, right? Because once we've gotten them to a place where they see obstacles standing in their way, it creates this concept of cognitive dissonance. What cognitive dissonance is there is a difference in your brain between what you want and what you're actually experiencing. So this call structure is perfectly suited to guide them through that process, where you're going to get them to see what is their vision, what do they want. You're going to help them see whether now is a good time to be committed to making those changes. And then you're going to expose obstacles, challenges, or frustrations. So what's actually going to happen is you're going to lead people down this path. And by the end of the path, they're going to be experiencing cognitive dissonance in their brains, where they've shared with you, this is what it looks like, Jason, for me to achieve success. I would be growing by 10% per month, month over month. I would have a dialed in lead generation tool that would guarantee me at least 10 new patients a week, right? So they're going to be sharing with you all of that stuff. Then they're going to be sharing with you why that stuff is important. So you're getting them to kind of visualize what it means to be successful rather than just to live in the frustration that they might have been living with. So you're getting them to see this is a vision and this is what it's like to be successful and this is what you actually want. Then you're getting them to see, are they committed? And then at the end of all of that, right, you're asking them impactful questions, which is going to expose things that are going on in their business, that is going to create this concept of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the difference between what they want and what they're actually experiencing right now. Because once you've showed them what they want, you've showed them that they're committed to making that and getting what they want, and then you're showing them the obstacles, what happens is now they see what I want, they see clearly what they want, but they don't have it. And what that creates for them is a desire to solve their problems. And the way that they're going to be able to solve their problems is potentially through your product or service if it's a tight fit. So this structure is carefully engineered to make sure that you're leading people through a process, number one, down their decision-making process, right? So you're helping them make a decision. You're also helping them expose whether or not there are opportunities in their business that aren't currently being solved yet. Then you're helping them see what are those roadblocks, what's stopping you, why aren't you getting it? And then at the end of that, there's a solution, and the solution is to go with your product or service. So that is a little bit of the overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to walk you guys through this structure, and the structure is going to take me way less than the normal time to walk through, because while week 3 is actually the simplest, because we've already laid the framework, and tonight what I'm going to be delivering to you is the structure that I would take into a call with me. But this is actually the shortest part, because this is the part where you get the information. I've gotten kind of some sample flow here for you to actually steal from me and be able to walk through. But this is where you actually have to take what we're learning tonight, and it's less about learning tonight, and it's more about getting this information and going out there and applying it. Okay, so as you guys are listening to this, Jason, tonight, you and I are going to be talking, no problem. People who are listening to the recording, the goal here is that you've learned enough new information, and now we're really at the point where I'm going to give you the full call structure so that you can go out there and begin to implement it immediately. Okay, and if you've got questions or challenges as you're going out there and doing it, you know I'm here for you. Shoot me a message on Facebook, send me an email. We'll do whatever we need to do to make sure you understand exactly how to use this. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to highlight as I'm going through this, because I prefer to do this part in Google Doc versus a slideshow. So section number 1 is that we are opening, right? So we are redefining time and reality. So what I mean by redefining time and reality is we want to create an environment for these folks where we are dropping in. First off, we are excited. We are happy to be here. So what you can see here is, hey, Jason, I'm excited that you grabbed some time on my calendar to talk. Okay. Before we jump in, I'm curious, why did you decide to take this call? So you guys remember in week 2, we talked about a conversation bridge. The conversation bridge is how we get from the opening to the actual conversation. The way that I like to delve into that conversation is the conversation bridge. And like I told you guys last week, the very simple conversation bridge that I always use is, hey, why did you decide to take this call? Because it's going to get them to immediately start to open up to you a little bit about whatever's going on in their life or their business that made them feel interested when you reached out to them. Okay. So we're opening here, redefining time and reality. So what we're redefining time and reality means we are excited. We are prepared for the discussion of this opportunity, right? So what I mean by redefining time and reality is people are all over the place right now. In their day-to-day, they're jumping from thing to thing. So what we're doing here is we're redefining their time and reality so that the next 30 minutes or the next hour that you're going to spend with them, you're going to help them enter a different stratosphere by working them through this process. Okay. So remember, we built agendas. So what we're going to do is we're going to introduce ourselves coming across as smart, enthusiastic, and authoritative figure, right? By being generally open and happy about being on the call. Then we're going to get them involved a little bit by using our conversation bridge. So we want to say, hey, why did you decide to take this call? It's going to get them to start talking. Okay. Then remember, we never go into any interaction without having a valid agenda in place. And remember, an agenda is only valid if they've agreed to it. So an agenda is not something that you just put on them and say, this is what's happening. An agenda is say, here's what I propose. Do you think that that's cool? Is that going to work for you? Right? So the example agenda that I put together here, and I'm going to be reading some of this stuff because if you guys have been following my posts in the Facebook group, tonality matters, especially if you're selling over the phone rather than in person. That person can't see your body language. So they're going to be listening to the words that you say, but they're going to be listening to how you say the words, the tonality that you're delivering. So I deliberately put this together so that I can say a little bit of the stuff to you, because it's not just the words that are important. It's how you're delivering the words that is important, because you have tonality as one of your weapons when you're selling on the phone, because you don't have body language, right? You don't have your charming good looks. You don't have any of that stuff. What you've got is your tonality and the words that you're using. So we want to make the most of that stuff. Okay, so pay attention as I'm saying these things, because the way that I'm delivering them is equally as important, if not more important, than the actual words that I'm going to be using. So the agenda. So first, Mr. Prospect, I'd like to learn more about you. I'd like to find out what's going on in your business, and I'd like to understand more about what you're actually hoping to experience. I'd like to understand what you're looking to build, change, or grow. And then after that, if it makes sense, what I'll do is describe to you how I've helped people in your exact situation, and then you insert your unique selling proposition, right? So you're going to say, hey, if it makes sense, I'm going to describe to you how I've helped somebody else grow their lead source by 30% month over month, or get 10% more patients through the door on a weekly basis. Whatever it is that you're selling and the benefit to what you're selling, you include it here. So we're saying, hey, I'd like to learn about you. I'd like to find out about your business. I'm going to ask you some questions. We want to understand, what is it that you're looking to build, change, or grow here? And then second, if it makes sense, I'll describe to you how I've helped people increase their patient referrals by 10% within 2 weeks of getting started with me. So my intention is that by the end of this call, you'll more deeply understand how we can work together. So could we do this? At the end of this call, we'll have a better idea of whether or not we'd like to move forward together, or if it makes sense to part as friends. Does that sound good? So this right here, folks, is an agenda. And it doesn't sound scary at all when you deliver it in the way that I'm delivering it, where you're telling them, look, here's what's going to happen. We're going to ask questions. We're going to get to know each other. If it makes sense, I will describe to you the possibility of working together and describe to you how I've helped some other folks. And then at the end of this call, I'd like you to make a decision on whether or not you'd like to move forward with what we talk about. Or if it doesn't make sense, you can let me know that you're not interested in moving forward and we can part ways as friends. Does that sound fair? Or does that sound good? Or does that sound okay? You can use any of that stuff. Okay, so we are opening and defining reality. And remember, the first minute of your call is crucial because they are forming their opinion about you actually in the first 4 to 6 seconds. So what I want you guys to think about is the way that you're perceived on the phone is directly through your tonality and the words that you choose. So there is a reason why people have been saying things like, look in a mirror when you're talking on the phone because you can see yourself smile. Or when people say, stand up when you're talking. The reason that they're actually saying those things is because the way that you are perceived is a direct result of your tonality. So you need to be smart, you need to be enthusiastic, and you need to come across as an authoritative figure. Okay. The second stage here that we're going to be talking about is something that I call the alpha grab. And let me tell you before I go into exactly what this means, why the alpha grab is important. So remember when we talked about in weeks 1 and 2, how most people don't realize how to be sold to, right? Most people don't know how they actually go about making decisions in life. And because we've been doing this for a few weeks now, you and I know that every single decision is first made emotionally, and only then does someone go back and verify that the decision that they've made makes sense logically. So remember, most people do not understand how to be sold to because they don't actually know what their decision-making process is. They think they make decisions logically while not realizing that they're actually making decisions emotionally. Okay, here's the reason that that's important. Tell me, or just nod your head silently to yourself, Jason, or if you're watching this recording at a later time, nod silently if you've experienced this. You want to have a sales call with somebody and you set it up and you kind of have a rough plan of what you're going to do and what you're going to talk about. And then when the sales call starts, the prospect just starts running all over you. They say, stop, stop, stop. Tell me who you are. Tell me what you do. Tell me who you've helped. They start asking you those types of questions because in their brains, they believe that they make decisions logically. So in order to logically make a decision, they need to ask you some questions, because once they've gotten their questions answered, they'll have all of the facts, and then they'll be able to make a decision, right? Because every decision is made by facts and logic. Wrong. Most people don't know how to be sold to because they don't understand how they make decisions. So what we do here is something called the alpha grab. The alpha grab is where we take control of the conversation so they very clearly understand up front that you are the alpha in this conversation and they are the beta. And remember, we talked about this again. It's not about some sort of a power dynamic where you want power just for power. The reason that you need to grab the alpha or to have the power in the conversation is because we're becoming experts at helping people make decisions. And we need to lead them down a path where they're going to understand emotionally whether or not they actually need or want your service based on whatever it is that they're experiencing. Okay. And then only after that will they go back and verify things logically. So we're doing the alpha grab here, not because we just want power because we want power. We're doing this because in order for us to be effective facilitators of decision-making for people, we need to have the power, because that's how people make decisions, is if we lead them through this process rather than just kept peppered with questions. So the way that I do the alpha grab is I always let them know here. First, before we get going down this path, let me kind of clearly introduce myself so you've got a better understanding of the unique perspective that I bring to this call. Remember, our weapons are tonality and words. So the words that we choose are very important. So some of these words that I'm going to be showing you guys are very carefully thought out because they're opening up loops in people's brains that are getting them to think in a certain way. So I'm letting them know, hey, I have a unique perspective and I want to tell you what my unique perspective is, right? So here, this is going to be different for everybody. For somebody like Mike, who might still be doing idea extraction, you're just going to deliver a clear, concise statement about the fact that you are becoming an entrepreneur because your passion is solving problems, and you're talking to every single business owner that you can to get a global understanding of an industry, right? And then be able to come back to the industry once you've talked to 30, 40, 50 people and be able to deliver to them a solution to their global problem. Jason, if you're selling stuff into the dentistry industry, right, you're going to let people know about the projects that you've already done. You're going to let them know, I've seen this problem, I've built a solution to solve it. I've seen this problem, I've built a solution to solve it, right? You're going to let them know very clearly why you are important and why they want to pay attention to you. And again, remember, you don't have to actually have 15 years of credibility. A lot of this alpha grab is about your tonality, about the words you use like unique perspective, and about telling them quite honestly what is important about you, right? So Mike, again, for that idea extraction example, and the reason I keep going back to the idea extraction example is because it's really potentially the hardest one to think about, right? Because he doesn't have a business yet. He doesn't have a product yet. So the way that he needs to create excitement is by just letting them know, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm talking with everyone I can in the industry, and I am a problem solver, and I'm going to seek to understand and solve a global problem in this industry. So what you're doing here again is you're just letting them know, I have a unique perspective, and here is what my unique perspective is based around. So you're delivering to them a clear and concise statement about who you are and how you help people succeed as an entrepreneur. Okay, so that's the intro stuff. The intro stuff, again, is you're opening with redefining time and reality. You're delivering an agenda. You're paying attention to the tonality that you're using, because over the phone, people can just hear your words and they can hear your tone. So we need to use the weapons that we have available to us. Then we're grabbing the alpha, because it's important for us to be in control of the conversation so that we can effectively lead people through a decision-making process. So here's where what the three-part process starts coming in. Okay, so now we've gotten into the conversation. We have control of the conversation because we've let them know we're bringing this unique perspective. And this is an interesting process here. And I've been through, again, a lot of the methodologies. I've done thousands of sales calls. And what I've found is that if you go into an interaction and you just want to start saying, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest frustration? You are in the camp of every single other person that they've ever talked to in terms of sellers, right? When you just start asking them those baseline questions, they're immediately thinking, I've heard this before, maybe not from this particular guy or girl, but I've been here before. So we're going to do something different. Before we ask them about their questions or about their problems or frustrations or challenge, we're going to find out what their vision is. And the vision is important because it's based on a concept called fantasy state induction. So I think actually everyone here on the call has been through the foundation or is currently going through the foundation. So we have the benefit of sharing a baseline of what mindset means to be able to achieve things in life or in business. So the short answer is this: you can't have anything in life that you don't believe that you can have. And the way that you start down that path is you first need to see, this is what I want. And then what you need to do is then you need to feel what you want, right? So you guys have all been through the Rob Scott exercises through the foundation. And the core of that whole repatterning the mindset exercises is two things. You need to clearly visualize what it is that you want, but then beyond just visualizing it in one capacity, you need to be able to feel what it's like, right? So if you're repatterning your identity because, I don't know, an example, you want to become a public speaker, but you have this limiting belief that you're not going to be a great public speaker, you're not going to be a great at sales. In order to overcome that belief, first, you need to have a vision of yourself being successful at it. But then moreover than that, you need to feel what it's going to feel like to be successful. So what we're doing here is we're giving people the gift of getting them to, number one, articulate what do they want, but then we're going to give them the gift of asking them to put themselves in that place, right? So Mr. Dentist owner, you want to increase your patients by 10% per week. Right? If you increase your patients 10% per week, you're going to experience X amount of growth at the end of the year. So that's great. So that's what you're looking to do. Tell me, Mr. Dentist, what would it feel like to you if you were growing your business by 10% a week? What would the impact be if you were able to serve 10% more patients per week. What would that mean to you? What would that mean to your business partners? What would that mean to your family? Right? So the reason it's called fantasy state induction is we're not just being very simple and saying, tell me what success looks like for you. What we're doing here is we're asking them, before we start talking about the problems or about me or about all that stuff, what I would like to understand is, what is your ideal experience of growth in this area of your business? What does success look like to you? And this is, again, going to depend on your product or service. So what we're asking them to do here is say, we're going to get to the problems. Don't worry about that. We'll have plenty of time to talk about problems. But what I want to do before we get to there is, you and I are obviously on a call together right now because you're not getting everything you want. So what I want to do first is I want to understand, what do you actually want, right? So here's some questions that I just kind of put out here to give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about, right? So I want to know, what does success look like to you financially? What will it mean for your experience on a daily basis? How do you see this playing out? What types of freedoms would that allow you or your employees to experience? How would your experience be changed from what it's like today if you were experiencing this, right? Please share with me fully so I can see what your dreams look like, or so I can see what your goals look like. So the important part to remember here again is, it's not just them telling you, this is what my goal is. It's two parts. It's them telling you what their goal is or what they want to experience, and then asking them, what does it feel like to experience that? What does it look like for you? What would it mean for your business partners, for your family? What would it mean for your patients? So you're getting them, again, fantasy state induction. You're getting them to feel what it feels like to be in that state of having what they want to have, right? Because remember, part of the, back to the Rob Scott stuff, you can't have anything in life that, number one, you don't believe you can have, but number two, you can't actually even imagine yourself having it. Okay. So we're giving them a beautiful gift here of helping them articulate, what are your goals, and then living in that place of what it feels like to achieve their goals. All right. So part two of this, right? So now, just to recap, I like to do the recap here because it helps you guys learn. We're opening with redefining time and reality, paying attention to our tonality and words, coming across as smart, enthusiastic, and an authoritative figure. We're giving them an agenda. Well, a conversation bridge, then an agenda. We're alpha grabbing them. So we know, right, that we're in control and we can effectively lead them through a decision-making process. And then we are using a fantasy state induction to help them see what their goals are in business, what do they actually want, and what would it feel like if they were able to get or have that. Here's the weird thing. I've done about 400 sales calls over the last 4 months, selling a variety of consulting products, my own stuff. I've helped other people sell their stuff. And the unique thing that I've found is that a large majority of the people that you talk to will have trouble telling you what they want. So what happens, or what I've found may happen, is that when you say, Mr. Dentist Owner, tell me a little bit about, what would an ideal growth experience look like for you in the amount of patients over a month? Like, how many people do you actually want to serve on a monthly basis versus what you're doing right now? The interesting thing that I've found is that rather than people immediately saying, here's what I want, Frank, I'm so glad you asked that question, they start telling you the reasons why they can't have it. So in this dentist example for Jason, they might say, well, I'd love to serve more patients, but I only have so much time. Or, I'd love to serve more patients, but I'm really feeling maxed out on my ability to market. So I'm not really sure how to even get more patients. So rather than tell you what they want, many people will tell you why they can't have what they want. And here's your job. Your job is to coach them through this process. Okay. So if they're telling you, well, it's hard for me to get there because of X, Y, and Z reason, here's what you don't do. You don't immediately say, ooh, I found a problem. Now let me tell you about how I can solve it. Do not do that. This is not the part of the process where you talk about your solution or you start pitching them or you start telling them things. We are coaching them through a decision-making process here. Each part is absolutely crucial to their being able to make a decision first emotionally and then logically. So if they don't share with you their vision, right? If they tell you things like, here are my challenges or roadblocks, instead of what they actually want, your job is to coach them through the process. And here's what coaching might look like for you, right? And again, I'm using the words here, so you don't have to copy what I say, but I want to give you guys a sense of the way that I would do it, because my role here isn't to make people feel bad. My role is to help them see what they can't see. So if they tell me, right, if I ask them how much growth do you want to experience next month, and they say, well, I don't think I can experience as much growth as I want because of X, Y, Z. Or what some people might tell you is, well, I think a reasonable goal is $10 per month. What you're doing here is you're not asking them what's reasonable, and you're not asking them what their problems are. You're asking them what they actually want. And if they tell you anything other than what they actually want, then it's your job to coach them through the process and help them see what they actually want instead of telling you what's reasonable or telling you their problems. So what you might say is, hey, let me feedback what I heard from you. What I heard from you when I asked you what you actually want to experience in growth is you kind of told me everything that's keeping you from that growth, all of the deficiencies, but you never really told me what it would feel like to be successful. Right? So kind of understanding that, let's go through it one more time. So please share with me, what would it look like for you, or what type of growth would you experience in an ideal world? What freedoms would you have? What would that make you feel like? Okay, so what we're doing here again is we're not immediately pitching them when they start telling us their problems. Our goal in this section is to help them be in this fantasy state. And the only way they can be in this fantasy state is if they clearly see their vision of what they want and then feel a little bit about that. Okay. So we have to coach them through the process if they don't tell you that. So you just say, hey, I appreciate your answer. That's great. What I asked for is what you actually want to experience in terms of growth. But what you kind of gave back to me is what you think is holding you back or what's possible. That's no problem. But let's go again with that. So share with me, in an ideal world, right? If you could have any growth that you wanted next month, or you could bring in a new amount of patients, what would that look like for you? What percentage would that be? What would it feel like if you achieved that percentage? What do you think it would feel like if you were able to go tell your business partner, we grew 20% last month, right? What would that mean to you? What thoughts would go through your head? What would you be thinking when you went home and told your wife? So you're getting them to live in this fantasy state where they clearly understand what they want and they get a taste of what it's going to feel like to get what they want. Let me take a sip of water. Okay. Next part is commitment. So we've gotten them now to a place where they've started to have a glimpse of what they want and they've started to clearly describe their goals to you. So what we're doing now is once we've coached them through the process of here's what I actually want and here's what it would feel like to get what I want, now we want to understand how committed are they to making that happen. So I always like to preface this to them because when you ask people this question, what I've often experienced is that they perceive it like you're trying to lead them to saying, yes, I'm really committed. Or in their brain, they're thinking, what is the right answer, right? What does Vladi want to hear? What does Jason want to hear? What does Mike want to hear? So a lot of times you might just get initially, if you just ask it like that, oh, I'm really committed. I just feel super committed. I shared with you those goals. I'm real committed. So what we're doing here is we want to ask them to explore for themselves, how committed are you in this moment to making these changes real for you? And I always like to use something like this. Let me preface this by saying that I'm not asking you to give me the answer that you think I'm looking for. What I'm asking you to do is truly explore this for yourself, right? When you think about the prospect of going out there and making these changes to achieve your growth you want, why is now a good time? Or even a better question, is now a good time? Okay, so you're getting them now to kind of dig deep down. And what you're doing here is you are qualifying them. You're qualifying them for your own benefit, right? But then you're also qualifying them for their benefit, because they might have just jumped onto this call on a whim because you said something interesting or fun or whatever, something that piqued their interest. But now you need to get them to a point where they need to dig deep down and they need to ask themselves, is this an area of my business that I really am committing to improving? Because, without a commitment to at least wanting to improve something, how the hell are you going to help anyone get anything? Right? And then again, what we're doing here is we want to know things like, well, what does commitment look like? Or what does it feel like? Or truly, why is now a good time for you to be able to make these changes? Okay. You might even ask them something like, who would support you in this journey? So if it's a dental practice owner, right, you might ask them, okay, what I'm hearing is that you feel really committed. You feel like now is a good time to make these changes. Who is going to support you in this journey? Is it going to be a business owner? Is it going to be a key admin staff, right? If not, how could you list their in support? How could you bring them onto your side? Okay. So what we're doing here is we're qualifying them for two reasons, for their benefit and for our benefit. We're getting them to really dig deep down and understand, is this something that they want to make a change on? Okay. If they do want to make a change on it, then we continue. And the way that we continue is now we're asking them their problems, challenges, frustrations, all of that stuff, right? This is typically what most people will tell you to do right off the bat, where you just get on a call and you start firing questions at this person. The structure that I've laid out is going to allow you to build rapport with these people, become a figure of authority. It's going to allow you to help them see for themselves what they want, whether or not they're committed to it. And at this point, they are primed to giving you answers. But not just to give you answers, they're primed to ask these questions of themselves, right? So if you guys wrote out some amazing, impactful questions, this is where we're going to insert them into the sales structure. Right. So I just put in like an example here. Right. But what I want to do now, share with me what is keeping you from realizing the goals that you have for growth. Right. What is standing in your way of building a vehicle for freedom, growth, whatever? This is just a kicking off point here. The reason that we went through the exercise of building questions last week is because this is where you're going to insert those questions, because now they've seen their vision. They understand what they want, right? They've thought and considered whether or not they feel committed to making the changes. And now here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a deeper dive. We're going to be exploring, okay, what's the real reason that you haven't been achieving the growth that you want? Why haven't you been getting more patients? Why haven't you been getting more leads? Why haven't you been whatever they haven't been doing? We want to understand why, and we want to understand what is the impact of you not having those things. What is the impact of you not achieving that growth, right? What is it costing you to not take action in order to make these changes? What would happen a year from now if you took absolutely no action at all toward getting what you want? Well, nothing would happen. You'd get the same, right? So this is where we're using our impact questions, and we are getting them to more deeply live in this place of, here's what's lacking, here's what's missing, here's what I haven't seen yet, right? We're asking those impactful questions to get them to consider, what is really stopping me from getting what I want? And you're bringing the power by asking them questions that they've probably never even considered themselves, where when they give you an answer, they're going to have discovered something new about their business that they didn't know before you asked the question. So I always think this way. When you ask people great questions, you're really giving them a gift, because people are often out there looking for answers, but the answers are often not what they actually need. What they need is a really good question. So you're going to give them a really good question. That way they're going to actually see what they're missing. Okay. So then once they start describing these things to you, you're going to dig deep by asking the impact. So I just put some examples in here so you guys could see this stuff. But really what we're doing is we're asking them, what are the challenges or frustrations you have? And what is the impact of you not fixing or changing whatever you're doing right now, right? What's going to happen if you don't make any changes for 6 months? What would happen if for a year you let these problems and challenges keep going? And then a year from now, what would it feel like to you to have these same problems? Okay. So you're looking to explore what's going on, what's stopping them. And again, you're getting them to truly see new things about their business by bringing them power, by asking them impactful questions. And here are some of the other things that you might say, like, what is a conversation that you happen in your head, right? When you hear that this is going on as a result of your business, or right when you see now that the impact of not making the simple change is costing you $10,000 a month, like what types of things come up for you? Right? Because part of this process is we're not just asking questions, but we are eliciting emotions from people because that's what we need for them to make an effective decision. We don't need logic to help them. We need them first to understand at an emotional level that there are problems that without solving them will cause them to not get what they want. Okay. So this, remember in the beginning of the conversation, you guys, I talked about the process of cognitive dissonance. This is where we create it. So we've gotten them to share their vision and feel like what it means to live in that vision, the fantasy state induction. Then we've gotten them to consider, why is now a good time to get what I want, right? Is now really a good time? Then, right, we're getting them to explore, what are the challenges? What are the impacts? So what you're creating again now is that cognitive dissonance, where you've led them through a process so that they can see exactly what they want and what it feels like. But now you're getting them to be in this place where they're like, oh shit, Jason, or oh shit, Mike, I'm having all these problems, and the impact of all these problems is that I'm never going to get whatever it is I told you that I wanted out of my business. So that is cognitive dissonance. So there's going to be tension created here. And I don't mean tension in the way that you're thinking it. I mean tension like inside of your prospect. They're going to begin to feel a sense of unease because you've taken them through this process where they see what they want, they see how committed they are, but then you bring them into this place where they're almost swimming in a pool of their own problems and feeling the impact of not resolving those problems. And very clearly now, the resolution of their tension comes through buying your product or service. The resolution of their tension comes as a result of a financial transaction. Okay, so let me tell you very briefly what I would like you guys not to do here, because it's when we hear problems, what we usually want to be saying to people is, oh my gosh, don't worry, I've experienced it before. I helped people like that before. Don't worry about it. You're okay. You're all good. Our goal here, remember, is not to become a cheerleader for them or their problems or to make them feel good, because the resolution of their tension comes on the other side of a financial transaction or on the other side of them making a change that involves our product or service. Okay, so we don't resolve tension by telling them it's all going to be okay. The way that we resolve tension is by then going into the description of your service. Okay, so again, a lot of sales programs will have you question. We're not even talking about the shit that we offer until section 6 of this document, because people don't actually need to know this until they've seen their vision, their commitment, and their roadblocks. Okay, so we don't even begin to talk about our product or service until section 6. And I use some of the language like, it's obvious that you're a great candidate for what I do, right? I believe it can facilitate your dreams and overcoming this stuff. I believe there is an opportunity for us to work together. This is one of those words that matter, right? And then I ask them very clearly, would you be interested in hearing more about the program, right? Or the service or the product that I'm certain would be able to facilitate these changes for you? So the reason, again, that we don't resolve tension is because they resolve tension on the other side of this question, right? So we're going to tell them, hey, I think you're a great fit. What we've talked about, I've helped a lot of people like that. Would you be interested in hearing more about that? Because I'm pretty sure it would be able to facilitate these changes for you the way that it facilitates changes for my other clients or my other partners or whatever. And then you deliver a very brief explanation of whatever it is that you offer. And brief is a term that will mean different things to different people selling different things. If you have a super complex offering, you might have to spend a little bit more time going through it. The way that I describe things is always in this way, right? What I aim to do is I aim to describe my solution in terms of which problems they have. So if they tell me they have a problem with getting leads, then I will tell them what it will be like in order for them to get leads through my program because of the way that other people have done it, right? So what you're always looking to do is you're not just giving like, here's everything about my product or service. As you're going through this conversation, you're writing down some notes, right? And you're saying they've got problem 1, problem 2, problem 3. And what your aim is when you're describing your product service is you want to describe your service specifically as it relates to problem 1, problem 2, and problem 3. Because our goal isn't to just give them an hour-long pitch about everything that we do. Our goal is to speak specifically to the problems that they've shared with us and to speak specifically to the vision that they told us about in the beginning of the call, right? So we're going to say, I help people with problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, so that they can experience vision 1, vision 2, vision 3 that they told you early in the call. Okay, so the goal, again, not a big long sales pitch. The goal is to clearly and concisely describe in terms of what they want or their problems, how you're going to help them solve those specific problems, or how you're going to help them achieve their specific vision through your product or service. Okay, so the pitch part is usually the shortest part for me. If I'm doing a 30-minute sales call to sell my own coaching, to sell other people's coaching, when I'm coaching people on how to sell their software, their products or service, there might be a 30-minute sales call and it might only actually take 4 to 5 minutes for me to describe my solution. Now, again, if you're selling big complex things, this might be a longer process. And this might even be a separate call process. So when I was selling software into the government, I would have one entire call about all of this stuff, right? I would have one entire call about their vision, about their commitment, about their roadblocks. And then I wouldn't even describe my solution until they agreed to bring a bunch of decision makers to a separate call at a later date. So depending on the complexity of what you're doing, you might not even be describing your solution here. You might be setting that for another call. For example, Jason, this might happen to you if you're dealing with large dental practices. Oftentimes, you might not have all of the decision makers on the first call. So you might choose to either give a truncated version of your software or your description, right? That way that person can buy in. But you might ultimately have to bring this to another group of people. So again, it just depends. Like in some calls that I have, this only takes me 4 minutes. When I sold complex software solutions, we might set an entire call around this process so that I can describe to them, here's how we'll solve problem 1, problem 2, and problem 3. Okay. The next step here is the close. We want to close this shit. Okay. But there's no special magic to closing. The beauty of the system that we're learning right now and that we're going through is that, remember, we already closed them in the agenda. In the first 2 minutes of the conversation, we told them, look, here's what's going to happen. We're going to have a call. We're going to learn about what you want. We're going to explore challenges. And then if it makes sense, I'll describe to you how we potentially solve that through my product or service. And then at the end of the call, right, I'd like you to let me know one of two things. Either, yes, you'd like to move forward in this process, or you can let me know, no, this doesn't work for you and we can part as friends. So remember, it's not tough to close when you have an agenda set like that, because you don't need to do any special trick. It's not going to be awkward because they're already expecting it. So what we need to do now before we actually do the full close is we need to share the costs. And again, the words that you use matter. So people associate the word cost as a negative. They have these subconscious limiting beliefs around what certain words mean, and cost means pain because it's something that they perceive they're going to lose. Even though you and I know from our first conversation in week 1 that spending money actually expands your abilities in life, and receiving money is not a good thing, but receiving money is not a bad or a dirty thing. So we know these things, but people still have limiting beliefs around certain words. So the word cost makes them immediately think I'm going to be losing something. So I might use something like economics. So if that'll make sense, right? If my product makes sense, what I'd like for you to do, what I would like to do now is share the economics of this program. Would you be interested in hearing that? That's simple. And then you give them the very clear costs. And one of the other words that I use when I'm describing this, if I have different packages, right? If I have package 1, package 2, package 3, I might say, I'm going to share with you the economics of the program. Would you be interested in hearing that? And they say yes. And then if you have 3 packages, for example, all right, or if you're pre-selling Mike and you've got 3 different options, they can prepay 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months. Well, you might say, well, there's 3 ways for you and I to experience working together. Option 1 costs this, or excuse me, we don't use cost, right? Option 1 is this, option 2 is this, option 3 is this. And then what we're asking them is essentially, I messed this up a little bit here. So you're reiterating your agenda, right? Remember at the beginning of the call, I told you that at the end, I'd like to ask you one of 2 things, whether or not you'd like to move forward and move on, right? So I just explained the economics to you. So based on what we talked about in the beginning of the call and everything we've heard, does one of these options fit into a budget that you might have for something like this, right? And if they say yes, you say, okay, how would you like to proceed? I'm going to write that in here. So this, again, the words that you say matter. From one of my mentors, Jim Camp, this is the best closing phrase that he had used in testing thousands of closing hundreds of millions of dollars of deals. So you're going to reiterate your agenda to them. You're going to say, hey, at the beginning of the call, I let you know that I'd like a decision, like either yes, you'd like to move forward, or no, this isn't for you and you'd like to part as friends, right? First, does one of these options fit into a budget you've got for something like this? If they say yes, then we say, okay, how would you like to proceed, right? And then they tell you exactly how they'd like to proceed, how they'd like to pay, all of that stuff. And don't worry, by the way, next week we're going to talk about objections and all of that stuff. But this is the structure. This is the structure, folks. And the structure ends with, how would you like to proceed? So that, my friends, is week 3. That is the exact call process that I use to sell consulting services, to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars of software packages, whatever it is. I adapt this call structure to it. I end it with how would you like to proceed after reiterating my agenda. So that is the end of week 3. For people on the recording, please let me know. Facebook, email. I'm doing whatever is possible for you guys to be able to implement this stuff and to take action on it. So if it's not clear how you take action on this, I am here to give you clarity. Send me a Facebook message, send me an email. If necessary, we'll get on a call. I'm here to do whatever it takes for you guys to use this information to your advantage. All right. So I know we've just got Jason on the call, so I'm going to stop sharing this. And Jason, what questions do you have? Anything, man?
No, I mean, everything was really straightforward.
Cool. How does that look for you? Does that feel like something that you can go and implement?
Yeah, I mean, I was on a call earlier today, and I did exactly what you said not to do, and things did not go the way I wanted them to go. So it's interesting.
Cool. How does this overall? I'm curious. Like, how does this make you feel when you hear me describe it? What does it feel like to you when you think about going out there and implementing this on a call?
It makes me feel more confident because the longer for me, it's when I immediately start talking about how I can help them and how I can, ease their pain. Like as soon as they start talking about how, I immediately jump into that. And with the way you suggested it, it's more of let them feel their pain and understand that there's a pain. And it makes me just, I feel a lot more confident about selling to them.
Yeah, man. And honestly, that was one of my biggest roadblocks too. So you guys are all probably getting a sense of like who I am. In my core, I love people. I want to help people. I want to see them succeed. I want to do anything that I can. So one of the things that initially held me back was exactly what you just described, Jason, is that when people started telling me their problems, I immediately wanted to make them feel better and say, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry at all. It's okay. We all experience problems. And what I found is that dissolves the tension. So then once you actually come to describing your service and the cost, you've already resolved their tension a little bit. So you're still going to close sales that way, right? When you've got the right prospect, but by not resolving the tension, they're going to want to resolve the tension. They're going to want to release that pressure. And the way that you're going to give them to release that pressure is by working with you rather than just by you being a cheerleader for them. So cool. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yep. That was
cool,
huge.
Man. Cool. Anything else?
No, I mean, it was, I'm waiting for you to share the document. It was
yes. I'll share it with you right now. And don't worry, everyone on the recording, you will get this document too. All right. So that is week 3 of Selling on Purpose. Again, recording, folks. I am here to serve you. You let me know how I can help you implement this. And Jason, you and I'll just trade messages with you. We'll figure out some time to chat tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds
all right,
good.
Man. Well,
Yep.
Jason, thank you for coming on. People in recording land, I love you, and I hope you're having a pleasant evening. But that's it for tonight, guys. So we'll see you next week.
All right. See you.
All right. See you, Jason.